Hi folks, Dr. Leitner here, and I hope you all are staying safe. This is a short video introducing Major Project 3, which is the Persuasive Research Project. And just to recap where we've come from, you wrote a research proposal which basically asked a question. It asked a research question about how to approach a problem in your community. In Major Project 2, you researched that question. And now in Major Project 3, you're going to try to answer that question. And one thing I want to say about Major Project 3, something that people get frustrated about, is that sometimes they think that they've picked this community problem, and let's say it's a learning disabilities in high schools, okay, or identifying learning disabilities in high schools. Well, the best way to help teachers identify learning disabilities in high schools is a very complicated problem. And once you kind of dig into, if you didn't know that before, once you dig into something like that, you'll find out, oh, this is a very complicated problem. So my point here is your research project does not have to solve the problem, but it does need to suggest a plan of action. And that plan of action can be as small as, we've got this problem and we don't have a solution yet, but here's a gap in our research. And we need to look more at this area of we've been looking over here at this area. We need to look over here at this area. So you don't need to, your plan of action does not have to be a solution to the problem. It can be a step towards a solution of the problem. So my point here is, don't think you need to solve intractable problems that have been around for years and no one has ever solved before. You don't have to do that in a one semester class in a 6 to 7 page paper. Okay, so let's review the background here to go over the paper. This is the project you've been building up to. Okay, the next project, by the way, is just an e-portfolio where you're presenting your project. Okay. Okay, let's go over, I kind of already went over the background and overview. Let's go over the requirements, okay? And there's about 10 requirements here, and theoretically there's 10 rows in the rubric. So don't forget, each one of these requirements is explained in a little more detail in the rubric. So, this is one of those sheets that I really think it's good if people have it printed out next to them while they're writing. If you're trying to switch back to this page and the thing you're working on the same computer, it's a lot of switching back and forth and it's kind of difficult. For me, at least, the easiest thing is to have this printed out, have it next to me as I'm doing my first draft, and then I'm kind of, I can kind of leave my screen where it is and just turn my attention back and forth. Okay. So, and again, for this project, I can really see this done in, and I really recommend this, do it in, use sections and use section headers to divide up the paper so it's not one big block of text, okay? And this helps the reader, okay, this helps me know what you're doing in each paragraph, and it helps you kind of structure your paper. Say, oh, I need to do this now. I need to do this now. I need that. What am I doing in this section? Sometimes we forget, here's the little thing I'm trying to accomplish in this section, okay? So the first requirement is, number one, your persuasive research project must provide the background and need for the research that you conducted. You can draw from your project proposal and describe the project's exigency, stakeholders, and audience, okay? So this could be a short paragraph, it could be a long paragraph, or it could be several paragraphs, or it could be 4 or 5 paragraphs. It depends on how much background your reader's going to need, you think your reader's going to need, how much kind of technical stuff that you might be explaining, okay, in that. So in some cases, the problem is kind of obvious, and so you don't need to describe the problem much, but maybe you've got a particular audience you're describing. Maybe you've got a particular exigency or kairos that's important. Those could get their own paragraph. So that's kind of up to you. But I would have at the top, not the top of this page, but the first thing after the title might be a heading called background. Okay, and then you're going to have 1 to 5 paragraphs about background. Okay, 2, you should articulate a controlling purpose early in the project. In other words, your readers need to understand what you are trying to accomplish in the project. Are you trying to convince a group of people to take a particular action based on your research? Yes, you are. Are you trying to identify gaps or oversights in knowledge and lead to continuing researching and thinking about these gaps? That might be another thing that you're doing, okay? So this would be another heading called purpose, okay? So background, first heading. This would be another heading called purpose. And again, I could see this being 1 or 2 paragraphs. 3, you should present your research to your audience in a way that makes it intelligible to them and supports your controlling purpose. Okay, so this isn't going to really be a heading. This is more like something that the whole essay should do. So to give you an example here, you don't want to, if your audience is business people and you're writing and your reasoning is something like, well, we need to do this because, it's good for all these kids over here, or it's good for the environment, or it's good for something else. Well, some business people care about the environment, but in general, it's not something that it's not the number one thing that business people are looking for. They're concerned about things like funding. They're concerned about things like the economy. They're concerned with other things. Okay, so based on who your audience is, that's going to determine how you're writing and the values you are writing to. Okay, the values you are appealing to. Are you saying this is going to solve an economic problem? Are you saying this is going to solve a childcare problem? So, and again, there can be overlap here, but my point is, let's say you're trying to write to a group of businessmen to save a local park in your town. Okay, you're not going to write and say, hey, this is really good for the environment and kids can go and play there and blah, blah, blah. You're going to write and say, hey, this is going to bring more people in to our town and that's going to mean more customers for you. Okay, and the result is the same. They're supporting saving the park, but the values for doing it are different. Okay, 4, your research must be integrated. In other words, do not include any drop quotes or unexplained materials. And, so the example I give here is, if any of you ever have smoothies, if you've ever had a bad smoothie, it's not blended well, okay? You drink the smoothie and there's like chunks in it and stuff like that. That's a bad smoothie, right? The smoothie needs to be smooth, okay? The project needs to be smooth. There shouldn't be any chunks in there that's where it's kind of like, where did this thing come from? There's no transition into it. There's no, I don't even know why this is here. It looks like something that someone copied and pasted and just plunked in the middle of this paragraph or whatever. So any quote that you use, you might need to explain it. You might need to say where it comes from, why it's credible, okay? All these things that we've already done. In many cases, you've already done them in the proposal and the bibliography. But don't just cut and paste something from those 2 projects. That might work, okay? That might sound okay. But make sure you read it back through again and make sure there's continuity and coherence, okay? Coherence means things stick together between, between quotes, between paragraphs, and that kind of thing. By the way, a trick for that, read this to somebody else out loud and just have them raise their hand when they're like, okay, you lost me there, okay? Or that something didn't quite sound right there, okay? And whenever they raise their hand, put a little circle on your paper, and as you keep going, you'll find all the kind of hot spots. And of course, I'm happy to respond to that too. 5, be sure to define and explain any key or technical terms. Okay, if you have a very important term that the reader might not know, or if you're using it in a way that might be unfamiliar to your reader, or in a specific way, sometimes there's general terms, but you might be using it in a specific way be sure to define those. 6, you must define a course of action or research that should be taken, who should undertake this course of action or research, and why it is likely to yield positive results. So this could be another heading. This is a heading where you're saying something like suggested course of action, or suggested course of research, or suggested solution, or something like that, depending on what you're requesting. Your persuasive research project must acknowledge and try to address any limitations in the project. These limitations might be political, social, and or positional. It's very difficult. An audience is going to get turned off if it seems like you're over-promising. So it's very handy to kind of acknowledge the limitations of something, and a very common limitation is funding. Like, where do we get the money to do this? And you might say, hey, here's what the research says is the best thing to do. However, I have not addressed how to get the funding for this, but that might be, and how to get funding for it might be the next step. Might be the next step that you're recommending. 7, your persuasive research project must, we did that. 8, your project should be 1,500 to 1,750 words in length. Okay, I go by word count in terms of grading, but that is about a 6 to 7 page paper. And be consistently grammatical to an extent that syntax does not obscure semantics. Semantics means meaning. So I should be able to understand what you're saying at any point. 9, your essay needs to include and integrate at least 2 multimodal elements. You could include pictures, sounds, or even hyperlinks, but you must make sure that your reader understands why you are including these elements and why including them enriches your writing. Consider what media beyond text might reinforce your main idea to readers, convey in another way the significance of your project, and or appeal to your readers from a different register. A register is a level, okay? So you might, if you're talking to a kid, you're speaking at one level. If you're talking to an adult, but an adult who's kind of uninformed about your topic, you're talking to at another level. If you're talking to scientists who are all experts in your topic, you're at a more formal level. So your register, your level is kind of up to you in terms of you've decided who your audience is that you're writing to. Okay, and all sources should be cited according to MLA conventions, and you should include a works cited section at the end of your project. And for most of you, a lot of this work has already been done because you've already done those works cited citations in your bibliography. All right. I'm not going to go over all the rubric. But it does give, it explains what I'm looking for at every level of those requirements. Okay. Guys, good luck. Keep writing. I'm really happy with what I'm seeing so far. And stay safe, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you.